All right, the Brazil game is over. We just saw the Philadelphia Eagles get off of, they were on a bad run to end last season. I think the 49ers really torpedoed the Eagles, and then it just all went downhill. They broke Philadelphia last year, but Eagles were able to get back on the winning track. They got embarrassed by Tampa Bay in the postseason last year. They got back on a winning track against a good playoff team from last year, the Packers, 34-29. And Jordan Love at the end, it looked really bad for a few seconds. He was writhing in pain, but then he was able to get up, limp off, probably an ankle, maybe a knee, maybe a little bit of both. Desperation play. They were trying to set up for a Hail Mary. He couldn't take the sack, so he was trying to twist his way out of the sack. He was able to pitch backwards on the play to Josh Jacobs, the running back. He was actually able to get out of a tough situation, but Jordan Love got hurt. Then they brought in Malik Willis, who'd been with the Tennessee Titans when the 49ers faced the Titans at the start of August, and Willis couldn't even get a throw off for the Hail Mary. So terrible finish to a fairly entertaining Brazil game. And my big question coming out of that one is, can the Eagles or the Packers defend the 49ers? Because, these are two primary NFC rivals for San Francisco. Both of them showed some explosiveness offensively in this game. I don't think either quarterback was great. Jordan Love only completed 50% of his passes. There were some bad throws. There were some real inaccuracies in this game from both guys, from both Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts. But there was explosiveness, and we know that both the Eagles and the Packers have weapons. We know that they've both been trying to stock up to keep up with the 49ers. Interesting seeing Josh Jacobs in that Packers uniform, then Saquon Barkley in the Eagles uniform. He scored 3 touchdowns today. So all that's fascinating, but I don't think, I didn't see anything from either team's defense in this game today that would make me think that, we have a ferociously balanced title contender on either side. And it's still week 1, so both teams still have time to develop defensively. I think if there ever was an outlier opportunity for a game, it's one where you have to fly down to Brazil and play on a Friday. So I'm not going to read too much into things, but I'm going to pose the question. Also, the field condition wasn't good. There was a lot of slipping out there. And typically when there's a lot of slipping out there, that's going to favor the offense, because the offense, as an offensive player, you know where you're going. As a defensive player, you don't. You're reacting to where the offense goes. So we saw a lot of missed tackles, stuff of that regard in the Eagles-Packers. But ultimately, the most balanced team is going to go the distance. And it's not just about offensive explosiveness. It's about the ability to stop the other team's offense. And we saw a lot of big plays given up today on the slippery field. So my question moving forward is, will the Eagles or the Packers be able to defend the 49ers? I was thinking about completely pivoting to talk about Jordan Love for 20 minutes, because that would have been a massive season-long loss for Green Bay if the worst had materialized there. I know we don't have a firm update because it happened 3 minutes ago, but Jordan Love did limp off the field on his own power. They didn't need the cart for him. So that's good news for the Packers. Still, just looking at I watched the game, it was on Peacock today. But I think the simple box score really matched what we saw, and we'll watch the tape. But Jordan Love was 17 of 34, 50%, 260 yards. Not a great efficiency there. Obviously did throw the 2 touchdown passes, a longer score. What was mixed in there as well, but I kind of looked through it. It was the 70-yarder to Reed, who looks like a good player, but the pick was a bad one. And then on the other side, Jalen Hurts also threw the ball 34 times. Both QBs threw the ball 34 times. Neither of them surpassed the 300-yard mark on the game, so the efficiency wasn't great for either of these two guys. 278 for Hurts. Finally ran a little bit better toward the end of the game, and 2 picks for Jalen Hurts. I don't think that either of these two quarterbacks is at Brock Purdy's level. I think that's clear. I think it was clear in the postseason last year, even when Purdy had a really rough go of it for most of the game against the Packers. He made the plays and the drives at crunch time, and Jordan Love did not. I think Jordan Love gets way too big of a pass relative to how people judged Brock Purdy last year for that performance. I mean, he went all Brett Favre on that final interception in that game. Just people are not, there's a biased lens through which the national media views Brock Purdy versus first round quarterbacks like Jordan Love. And it was very, very apparent in that football game. And again, today, 34-29, Eagles beat the Packers, but it wasn't an overly efficient performance from either quarterback. And it's all about efficiency. That's what's going to get you across to the finish line in these seasons. And both of these two teams, the Eagles and the Packers, beaten by the 49ers last year, both of them trying to figure out a way to get past San Francisco. Based on what I saw on that field today, that they're definitely not there yet. And it's still week one, but the 49ers are the defending NFC champions, and they're going to hold that spot as NFC favorites until they are dethroned. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about the 49ers offense against the Jets defense, starting with a thought from Brock Purdy on the New York Jets defensive backs.
Obviously, I just feel like they have a lot of experience, and they have a good natural feel for the game and sort of understanding concepts that offenses are running, and they're smart. And obviously, they're very athletic. Sauce Gardner's got some great length. DJ Reed's really quick, smart, gritty, and so for us, it's gonna be a great challenge. And anytime we're gonna push the ball outside the numbers or anything like that, it's just got to be smart and aware of those guys because they're really, really good corners. So.
You hear the DJ Reed shout out? Gritty cornerback. I mean, that's DJ Reed, the former 49er. They, unfortunately for the 49ers back, I think it was in 2020. That might have been the first sign that 2020 wasn't going to go well. They were unable to have DJ Reed clear waivers in a roster maneuver, and the Seahawks poached him, and then the 49ers paid dearly for that. He was a good player for Seattle. Shout out to Bakersfield, by the way, DJ Reed from Bakersfield. And then he ended up signing with the New York Jets. And he's a really, really good corner. As you heard Brock Purdy say, he's a scrappy corner opposite a true star in Sauce Gardner. So Brock Purdy, I mean, that was a detailed scouting report. You know that Brock Purdy's been studying this tape all off season. I think that the 49ers have been, based on what I understand, they've been implementing some of their specific game plan for this Jets season opener since the start of training camp, as far as, not installing the game plan the way that they do in the week prior to the game. But I think that during their play install period early in training camp, the 49ers had so much returning talent offensively. I mean, all 11 starters from last year are back on the roster this year. Only one of them is not going to be starting this year. That's Spencer Burford, the right guard. He's been replaced by Dominic Puni, who's the rookie. But the point is that the 49ers were able to hit the ground running this year, regardless of whether or not Trent Williams and Brandon Ayuk were there early on. They still had so much returning talent that they were able to start honing what, carry over from the long season last year and start really honing their craft for this game against the Jets. And I think you could tell from the way that Brock Purdy talks about these Jets corners, the scouting report being as detailed as it was, I think you can tell that he's been doing his homework on the Jets. And I think it's going to be a hell of a matchup. When you look across the back end, the New York Jets, they've got Chuck Clark at one of the safety positions. Used to play for the Baltimore Ravens. Tony Adams is the other safety. But on the corners, I mean, between Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed, I mean, you've got, I think it's a little bit of a Charvarius Ward, Deommodore Lenoir pairing in that regard, because Charvarius Ward's obviously the star in the 49ers secondary. But then you've got Deommodore Lenoir, who I think, I mean, he's a really good player in his own right, but he cut more from that really scrappy cloth. And he can also rotate inside and play for the 49ers at that nickelback spot. But I see DJ Reed as the Deommodore Lenoir of the New York Jets. And it just so happens that DJ Reed was a 5th round draft pick. Deommodore Lenoir was a 5th round draft pick. They were both 5th round draft picks of the 49ers. DJ Reed was a 5th round draft pick back when Robert Saleh was the 49ers defensive coordinator. Now he's the New York Jets head coach. They played DJ Reed inside. They played him outside. That's what they're doing with Deommodore Lenoir now. I think similar body types between Deommodore Lenoir and DJ Reed. So really fascinating parallels in that regard for me when I look at the Jets secondary and when I look at the 49ers secondary. And it's going to be Purdy. It's going to be Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. These guys testing this Jet secondary. Remember, in New York last year, this was a really good defense. People forget how good New York's defense was because the offense sucked. And that it sucked because they didn't have Aaron Rodgers. He tore his Achilles really, really early into that season, literally on the first drive. But defensively, this is how it was for the Jets last year. EPA per play, expected points added per play. They're number 4 against the pass and number 9 against the run. So that tells you that this is probably a pretty DB heavy defense. I mean, they're better against the pass than they were against the run. Now, I mean, they've got more talent, but we'll talk about that other talent in a little bit. First, I want you to kind of listen to Brock Purdy as he discusses the differences between the Jets defense and the 49ers defense, because I think this will give good context as to what the 49ers will have to face on Monday night.
They're pretty similar. You can just tell their mindset of playing fast and physical, just like our guys. They fly around, and you can just tell like it branches back to from when Saleh was here. And so, obviously the scheme as well, just how they run their defense and stuff, very similar. But obviously we got to be ready for just any other kind of different looks and stuff. And going into it, they know that we're familiar with their defense and stuff, but we just got to be ready for anything else that they can throw our way. So, but I'm excited just in the fact that I've gone against this defense for a while. All of our guys have, but they're different players. So we haven't gone up against their guys yet. So that's the challenge.
I think that's one of the most fascinating subplots of this game. Brock Purdy joked with me, the Jets have 3 Iowa State players. He said for a while they were calling them the New York Cyclones. Well, also that for a while they were calling the Jets 49ers East, because after Robert Saleh took the head coaching job there, he took a lot of the staff there, and we see a lot of ex-49ers players with the New York Jets, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That's where the carryover has been really, really profound. DJ Reed, as we mentioned, former 49er. Javon Kinlaw is now with the Jets. He's going to be a starter at one of the defensive tackle positions along that defensive line. Solomon Thomas is a rotational defensive lineman for the Jets. So you got a couple former 49ers first-round picks who didn't really work out for San Francisco are now in that defensive line rotation for New York. And then there's Isaiah Oliver, the nickelback, the free agent pickup who didn't work for 49ers last year. They actually moved him to safety, or at least safety depth down the stretch, and now he's safety depth for the Jets. But listening to Brock Purdy talk about the New York defense, to me, is fascinating, because I always wondered, how when players watch tape, how similar is it this far down the road? Because Robert Saleh came in with Kyle Shanahan in 2017. He came from Seattle. Shanahan, when he was the coordinator or at different spots around the league, he always struggled facing the Seattle-style defense. Back the Legion of Boom, back in the prime of Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, all those guys. They also had a really good edge rush, though. Cliff Averill was a speed rusher coming around the edge. Michael Bennett was a dominant defensive tackle in the middle. Then obviously the linebackers were excellent too, and Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright, who's the 49ers quality control coach now. He's on the 49ers staff. But you had this great Seattle defense that the 49ers wanted to emulate back in 2017, because Shanahan felt that was the toughest defense to go up against. So he brought Robert Saleh over from the Seahawks. Or maybe Saleh had been with Jacksonville at that point, but he was working under Gus Bradley. So Saleh had a Seahawks and a Jacksonville Jaguars background under Gus Bradley, who had been with Seattle. He knew how to run the 4-3, cover 3. That's what the 49ers implemented. Saleh delivered some good years with the 49ers. It took them a while to build up some of the talent, but as soon as they got the edge rushing talent in 2019, this was a top 2 defense. He managed, despite the Nick Bosa injury and the Dee Ford injury, to crank out the number 6 defense in 2020. Might have been an even more impressive performance in 2019, given the shortage of defensive talent. And those 2 years, 2019 and 2020, got Robert Saleh hired by the New York Jets as their head coach. So you had 2021, 2022 and 2023. The 49ers are now 3 full seasons removed. This is their 4th season without Robert Saleh. So it's fascinating to me to hear Brock Purdy talk about the defense that the Jets are running and whether or not it reminds him of what the 49ers are doing. And Purdy even mentioned, oh, yeah, like they used to do when Saleh was here. Purdy obviously wasn't with the 49ers yet. He was still back at Iowa State at the time. The last season for Saleh, 2020, was the season that Purdy won the Fiesta Bowl with Breece Hall at Iowa State against Oregon. They beat him, I think, 34-17. So Breece Hall is now a Jets running back, got so many cool connections in this game. But 49ers better be ready to play a team that plays with their style, because Robert Saleh was all about all gas, no brakes. That was the big mantra for the 49ers defense, and I think he has carried that over to New York. So you're going to have a team and a defense that plays with a heck of a lot of effort. They've got good players. Again, they were number 4 against the pass and number 9 against the run last year, despite having a terrible offense on the other side of the ball supporting them. The linebacker level, it's not as good as the 49ers, but C.J. Mosley is a good player. Quincy Williams, who used to be with the Jacksonville Jaguars, is a good player. This is a solid Jets defense, and the numbers show that, and the 49ers are going to have their hands full in that regard. One player, it's interesting because we're waiting to see if Hassan Reddick shows up in time. Reddick was traded over from the Philadelphia Eagles, who played tonight, his former team, won tonight, to the Jets, but without a new contract, and he still wants a new contract, so he hasn't showed up. And, I mean, he's a really good edge rusher. Reddick is the guy that injured Brock Purdy. So the Jets roster has the player who injured Brock Purdy in his elbow back in the NFC Championship game. The 49ers roster has the guy who sacked Aaron Rodgers on the play that Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles last year in Leonard Floyd. That's a funny coincidence that I don't think either quarterback in this game appreciates. But only one of those two guys is in his respective building right now, Leonard Floyd. And we're going to get to see his 49ers debut. I talked about that in the preview of the other side of the ball yesterday. Other side, Hassan Reddick, really good speed rusher, was at the top of the list in the NFL in sacks the other year. What's Hassan Reddick? Where's he going to be? What's he going to do moving forward? Because if Hassan Reddick is not available, then a player that was Brock Purdy's teammate in college at Iowa State, Will McDonald IV, first-round draft pick last season, entering his second year after not being used a whole lot his rookie season. Will McDonald's going to have a big spotlight on him in his second season. So ask Brock Purdy about his time with Will McDonald at Iowa State. And Will McDonald may have the spotlight on him in this battle of cyclones.
I mean, at practice, man, Will was so twitchy and bendy around the corners and stuff, and it was very hard for our offensive line to block him at practice. And so, for me, like going up against him at practice at Iowa State, it was always like, dang, man, like this guy's just a freak, and it's hard for me to go through my progressions and stuff. But we're on another level now in the NFL, but he's still that same, twitchy, fast, quick, explosive player. So anytime he's on the field, I definitely got to be aware of him. But I'm excited to go against him. Both of us being from Iowa State, with the guys that we have in the league and stuff, anytime we're playing against one of my guys from Iowa State, I always get excited and really, happy for them that they're at this level exceeding. But obviously when we step on the field, it's, I'm competing and I want to beat them. So, but I'm happy for Will.
All right, so let's take a look at what the Jets will bring pass rushing wise against the 49ers and also run defense, because that's important, because last year they were number 9 against the run. Solid defenses for the 49ers, just like, were never great against the run. They got better in 2021 after DeMeco Ryans made some adjustments. And I think DJ Jones really came into his own by that 2021 season. But I talked about it a lot. The wide 9, not necessarily conducive to top-level run defense unless you got really dominant defensive tackles. And it's interesting to me because Quinnen Williams is a dominant defensive tackle for the Jets. Speaking of guys injuring quarterbacks, Quinnen Williams is the player who hurt Jimmy Garoppolo in 2020. Beat Laken Tomlinson, no longer with the Jets, Laken Tomlinson, but beat Laken Tomlinson, got the Jimmy Garoppolo high ankle sprain. That was week 2 of that 2020 season, and that really derailed the 49ers following the Super Bowl year. But you got Quinnen Williams on the inside. Jermaine Johnson is one of the edge rushers. Michael Clemens is the other edge rusher. And then you say, okay, well, who's the second defensive tackle at the top of the rotation? It is Javon Kinlaw. Javon Kinlaw, who has added about 30 pounds of weight this year. They want him to be better against the run. They want him playing lower, so he's ready to occupy double teams against the run. I thought one of the biggest ironies last season, I talked about it a lot. Nobody else really seemed to talk about it. One of the biggest ironies last season was that Javon Kinlaw delivered a much better season as a pass rusher for the 49ers than a run defender for the 49ers. Yeah, it was wild for anybody who followed Kinlaw's progression. I mean, he came out of college as a really raw pass rusher, but he was a monolith, just a huge body. So the thought was, okay, well, this guy will plug it against the run, and maybe he'll develop as a pass rusher. And it turned out that Javon Kinlaw was a borderline liability against the run for the 49ers. Just was played too high, and he was over aggressive. He bit too much on counter action, but he really, really registered a good season pass rushing wise. In fact, Eric Armstead delivered one of his best season pass rushing wise last year when he was healthy, and was not nearly as good against the run as he had been in years prior. This, inversion led the 49ers to overhaul the interior defensive line. They needed guys better against the run because they ranked number 26 in EPA against the run. It wasn't good enough. Well, I'm wondering now, the Jets, who were number 9 against the run last year, they obviously want to keep it in the top 10. They're going to be facing the 49ers, who had one of the best running games in football. Christian McCaffrey, by the way, said that he's good to go today. How's Javon Kinlaw going to impact this Jets run defense? Because he wasn't great against the run last year, and now they're going to plug him in there in a starting role against the 49ers. I mean, big question for me. And it's funny because the issues and potential concerns of both of these teams echo. It seems like these teams are long lost relatives, and which they are. I mean, Robert Saleh helped architect this 49ers defense when Shanahan first showed up, and now he gets to play against his former team. So I think that's really exciting. Takk McKinley, I believe, didn't the 49ers sign him or claim him in 2020 when they were just leaking talent because of injuries, but then I don't think he passed the physical. So Takk McKinley is on this Jets team. He might be in that rotation defensively. And again, Solomon Thomas and Will McDonald are both on that second line for the Jets. You got to watch the linebackers if you're the 49ers. Quincy Williams and CJ Mosley. Those are a couple good players. And don't forget Michael Carter II, who is the nickelback for this New York Jets defense. It's not a bad defense. It is a very good defense. The third best in the league, according to some metrics last year, including EPA. And those are the splits, number 4 and number 9. All right, let's go 49ers Q&A. It's Friday night, and I opened the show talking about the Eagles and the Green Bay Packers. Saw the Eagles get off that big losing skid toward the end of last year with a win. Yeah, I just can't read too far into a game played on that surface in Brazil Friday to open the season. I didn't think the defenses looked good, and I didn't think the quarterbacks looked good. To me, it looked like a couple rather mediocre to slightly above average teams out there. Although the question is, would any team look mediocre to slightly above average on a poor surface in Brazil? It was just a rather inaccurate game from both quarterbacks, some bad turnovers, and some bad tackling. And that's my analysis of Eagles Packers. I think one of those two teams, if they want to unseat the 49ers at the top of the NFC, is going to have to prove that they can defensively slow down San Francisco when it matters. I get it that the Packers slowed down the 49ers throughout a lot of a rain game, but the 49ers were able to move the ball when it mattered against them late. And the Eagles weren't able to stop a nosebleed against the 49ers. So we still have so much to learn over the course of this season. If you want to learn a little bit right now, you can ask me a question. I'll answer it here over the next couple minutes. I don't think Talanoa Hufanga is going to be active quite yet for this game. I've always thought that their plan for Talanoa Hufanga was more along the lines of week 2 or week 3. It's definitely somewhere within the first 4 weeks because he's not on that PUP list anymore. But I think that the 49ers are going to go backup safety for this first game. I don't think there's a rush with Talanoa Hufanga. Mike says, if the Packers come calling to trade for Dobbs, what's the price that moves him off the 49ers roster? If this Jordan Love injury is severe enough that they need another quarterback, because I don't think that Malik Willis is really good. What would you trade Dobbs for? I mean, QBs are the most valuable position. QBs are assets. It's a good question. We got to go back and look to see what some of these backups have gone for. I think, Trey Lance went for a 4. Might have been a highway robbery there committed by the 49ers. I mean, it's Lance going for a 4 with how unproductive he's been. I mean, even this preseason, he was so inefficient. I get it. Dallas wanted to take a flyer on him, and he's a raw player, and he needs snaps, and they gave him snaps. But the 4th round pick was a really, really nice return for the 49ers. So I would say a mid to late round pick would be what compels the 49ers. They're going to wait to see if somebody gets desperate enough to want to grab Josh Dobbs. And I don't know if the Packers are going to be desperate enough. I think a 5 would be really nice, but maybe a 6. Maybe you would be okay with a 6th rounder coming back, because that cost controlled talent that you could acquire through the draft really is important for these teams. James asked, do they have any good swing tackles? James, I'm afraid to inform you that I don't think there's a such thing as a good swing tackle, because if you were a good swing tackle, you'd be a starting tackle in the NFL. There's a severe shortage of good offensive linemen in the league. This is from the Packers press conference. Matt LaFleur was asked for a status update on Jordan Love, and he said, I don't know. He's probably honest. I mean, I don't know if they have the same kind of x-ray facilities and everything at the stadium in Brazil as they do in the U.S. It might be a rough place to get hurt. Long flight now back home. Obviously, have to get the preliminary examination done on Jordan Love, and then you can move forward from there. Yeah, the 49ers can hold out for a 4th for Jordan Love. That's the glory of having options on this football team. You can say, hey, unless you send over a 4th, we're not trading him. You don't have to trade him. So you can wait till a team gets really desperate, and that draft pick is going to be worth just as much whether you get it week 1 or week 7 or week 8 before the trade deadline. I don't know, right now, I know some of the doctors on Twitter are talking about this. Jeff Mueller, who I think does a good job, he said, didn't seem like enough torque, but what I'm hoping this is a pivot shift of the tibia. That would be bad. If so, this could be ACL involved for Jordan Love, not just MCL. So a lot of people are talking about the knee now. I think the ankle also seemed to be in a compromised position for Jordan Love. We just hope. I mean, I hate injuries. You can just hope that he's okay. Again, I don't think it's. I don't know what kind of facilities they have behind the scenes at the stadium in Brazil. If they're going to be able to do an examination here before they get on the long flight back to the U.S., but would obviously be a seismic jolt to the NFC. And yes, Josh Dobbs might be a candidate for the Green Bay Packers, but you can be absolutely sure that if the 49ers consider trading somebody like Josh Dobbs within the conference to the NFC, they're going to ask for a premium, especially to a conference rival like the Packers, who, by the way, Green Bay, people say Brock Purdy, oh, he's got a lot of weapons. Guess who has a lot of weapons in the NFC? Jordan Love. I mean, the Packers have got a lot of nice pieces. So when there's a team that has as many nice pieces as Green Bay does offensively, and they pushed you to the very limit in the NFC divisional playoffs last year, you're not just going to send them a quarterback unless they pay a steep price. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's wait to see what the actual prognosis on Jordan Love is. Okay, so they don't even have, I'm guessing you're from Brazil. They don't even have MRI machines at most stadiums in the US. They have X-ray machines at the stadium. You got to go to the hospital for the MRI. So I'm highly doubtful that if a fully equipped NFL stadium doesn't have an MRI machine, I'm doubtful that the soccer maybe in, because this was soccer stadium they're playing at, right? Maybe it's more commonplace for soccer stadiums to have an MRI machine, but an MRI is a much more invasive procedure, like a scan, than an X-ray is. So whatever, if they're looking at ligament damage for Jordan Love, they're not going to be able to tell firmly through an X-ray, and those are the machines that they normally have at these stadiums. MRIs, you typically too, if it is a bad injury, you got to wait for some of the swelling to go down. But I just don't think it's ideal to be, what is it, a 10-hour flight away? Flights are tough on the body. It's not ideal to have an injury and then have to get on that plane and fly that far back. We've got a lot of optimism about the 49ers secondary. We shall see. That's a good comment. Mac Jones to the Packers. That'd be funny. All right, it's Friday night. Let's take it easy tonight. We had a very busy week. I'll be carrying some good coverage for you coming into tomorrow, but wanted to get you the NFL update. We're kind of calling it the NFL Blitz, and Brock Purdy against that Jets defense. If you like that combination of all the coverage, if you want some more NFL coverage, let me know. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you soon.